Very good morning, students. We'll continue with our next topic. And as in the last class, we have observed access control. In that, just the few examples I shown, like how private is limited to the class itself, and when you define that as a public, how you can access that in other classes. And we also understood why our public required main method is public, because main you are invoking from outside the class. That's why that method should be public. That's what we observed. And more details about these access specifiers that we'll discuss soon after discussing packages. Okay, because always in Java, whenever you are talking about access specifier, it should be with respect to packages. Anyway, we not started packages yet, so I think this particular information about public and private is sufficient. Details about protected and default, all these things we'll discuss later. But today we are discussing very important topic of Java, uh, that is static, and how this particular static is handled. That we'll discuss, because even though we come across this particular word long back in the, I think, for second class itself, when we written the first program, public static void main, there itself the word came, that is static. What is actually the static, and the details about that, that's what our today's discussion. I'll share the screen. Understanding static. Static. In Java, we are having various representation with respect to static. And what are that? Because when you are representing static, static, if somebody asks you a question, what is static in Java, then you have to ask static to what? Okay, whether static for the variables, static for the methods. Okay, like that, the definition will change. Okay, static variables, static methods, static block. Okay, these are the various representation with respect to static. Just we'll discuss one example. You know, we written uh, one class A, which is public static void main. Here itself static. Anyway, detail about this I'll tell later. Anyway, you just observe, we written one program, and you know, like we created two objects, is it not? OB1 and OB2. As you know, OB1 dot A, that is, sorry, OB1 dot B, if you represent, that is different. OB2 dot B, that is different. You can give the value. You can assign the value like this. Is it not? That means this B is different, this B is different. It is instance of class, even though the object reference is different. It is for OB1, it is for OB2. Is it not? So that's why it is called instance variable. With reference to object, it is possible to identify this B. Anyway, we'll discuss in detail how this static variable works. First, we'll start with static variables. You know, like in a program, when you represent one class, two variables in P comma C, and inside this, I created three objects, OB1, OB2, OB3. When you do that, see, three objects are created. One is OB1, and another is OB2, and another is OB3. Is it not? And you know, like instance. for OB1, B and C is created. For OB2, B and C is created. For OB3, B and C is created. That's why if you refer OB1 dot B, it refers this itself. If you refer OB2 dot B, it refers this itself. If you refer OB3 dot B, it refers this itself. Okay, like that, the allocation takes place. And as it is defined as instance variables, instance will be created for each object. Okay, that's about the normal variables, and which are called instance variable. Now, what is static variable? See, here itself will create one variable, and static is a keyword. Okay, static is a keyword. Please observe this. Yes, small. Okay, you should not write static. Always it is with small letter. And for the same variable, just I declared a new variable and I named that as static. Now, when you are created different instances, you're supposed to create a here, is it not? But it will not create because of this particular statement, that is, it is static. So how the allocation takes place? Allocation takes place separately, and all the objects refer to that itself. See the difference? Static variable means it looks like this. That means all objects are referring that. Okay, it will not allocate for each particular instances like earlier how we did. Okay, but commonly it will allocate. Normally it will be allocated in heap so that it is with respect to the memory for the class. Okay, class A memory, in that itself that will be allocated. And when it is allocated, the object will refer that. Okay, so that's what static variable will give the definition. It works like a global variable. See, is it not? That means you can access that particular variable anywhere. It's not necessary to, which will not be allocated for each object. Okay, so it acts like a global variable. So no copy of static variable is made. That's what important, because copies will not be created. One copy you are keeping. See, the copies are created here. Is it nothing for the instance variables? But no copy, only one. Okay, whatever. If you make this particular a is equal to 5, okay, a is equal to 6, a is equal to 7, means finally only 7 will reside here because it is already assigned. But earlier case, you know, like OB1 dot B, if you give 5, OB2 dot B, if you give, that is different, is it not? Because this B is different, this B is different, like that it will be. Okay, but that is not what the case with static variable. It acts like a global variable, first statement. Okay, that's about static variables. Anyway, in detail about that, I'll show you with the example. Okay, so when you are talking about static variable, it is one copy. Okay, for each particular object, it will not instantiate. Okay, it will be allocated only once. Now, after discussing static variable, we'll move to static methods. See, uh, we written one class A. Observe what we written first. Okay, we have written one class A. In that one method M1, it is just an instance method. Open brace, close brace. I am printing some statement. And in public static void main, main is another method which is static. Okay, that I'll tell you soon. See, inside that, to invoke this M1, what I need, I have to create object of type A. Okay, two objects I created. OB1.M1. To invoke this particular method, okay, m1, I have to create instance of that, because you can't write like if you call m1, okay, it is not possible because it is instance method. It is declared inside a class A. So to invoke that, object of type A is needed. Directly you can't access that. Okay, so that's what about this particular instance method. Now we'll write one, see how the allocation takes place. As usual, two objects if you are created means two instances, because ob1.m1 is different, ob2.m1 is different. Okay, like the purpose what actually the instance is created, okay, it will make a copy of that. Now we'll write one static method, static void em2 system.println static method. Okay, just similarly how we written m1, like that I written m2. Okay, but just I added one word, that is static. And now if you invoke that, because when you invoke that, once again as it is static, only one copy is created like this, and each object refers to that itself. Okay, when each object is referring to that itself means, if you invoke m2, okay, that itself sufficient. Okay, because mm, it not belongs to ob1 or ob2. It is not belongs to either ob1 or ob2, is it not? Then how to invoke that? Just you call by name. Okay, the name of the method is sufficient. Name of the method is sufficient to invoke that. Is it clear? Okay, when method is static, directly you can invoke without instantiating. That word is very important. That is without instantiating. Okay, instantiating, without instantiating, you are invoking that. Okay, just I'll show you example. Okay, and we'll discuss example, then we'll continue. Okay, because to understand how this particular working takes place, okay, that we'll see with example. Okay, Now we just observe how this particular method will be invoked. Because I created two variable, one is instance variable and another is with the keyword static. Okay, and I written two methods. One is just an instance method and another is static method. See, to create or invoke any particular variable, I have to create an object of type that particular class, is it not? As you observe, any number of objects you can create to invoke that ob.a is equal to 5. Like that, you have to assign the value to a. Okay, but you just observe if without that, okay, if you are invoking a method m1, that is ob.m1, like that you have to write, is it not? So that is what normally takes place when you are invoking the method. Okay, but for m2 directly you can invoke, see this, directly you can invoke the method because it is a static. If you execute this code, okay, we'll see what you will get. See, instance method for m1 and static method m2. Okay, and if you print our variable b, what you will get? Is it possible to print that? You can see 0, because see, static variable you can directly invoke, that is static int b, you can directly invoke, but a you can't write like that, is it not? If you write a, it gives an error. See, already error, because it's an instance variable, you can't refer directly. Okay, and if you write b directly, you can invoke. So that is what the method. See, please remember one more thing, just I wanted to clarify here itself. As it is void m1, it is not possible to give void m1 once again with a static. It will not make any difference. Okay, it is like a similar method. Okay, and instead of that, I'll make one particular variable like overloading. That is perfectly valid. Okay, you can write m1 with the parameter, just a static keyword, that is valid. Okay, but same name you can't give. Okay, because it will not consider that as a separate. It will think that only static is added, that's all. Okay, so that's what important. See, uh, after understanding that, one more very important uh, information just I wanted to tell, that is our basic, that is public static void main. Okay, why main is static? That is what very important information, is it not? Why main is static? Main is static because without creating any object of this particular class, we are invoking the main method. See, that's why. Because to invoke any particular method, it should be instantiated. That means you have to create an object of that particular class to invoke the method. But main, we are invoking from outside. As it is a public, it is possible to invoke from outside. And as it is a static, without creating any object, because you know that Java C A dot Java you are compiling, and after that Java A with the class name you are invoking. Is it not? Without any object, you are not created any object of type A, but you directly invoked that. Is it not? So why? Because it is static. So when method is static, it is possible to invoke directly. Okay, or you can put it like this. Mm, for static method, you have to, without creating object, you have to invoke. It will not allow, because it will not be instantiated like this, so that object and then you can access this object too, you can access. It is in like this, the allocation takes place, so you can access that directly. And few information, very important information you should know with respect to static method. What are that? See, they can only call other static methods. This is very important, because static method can invoke only other static methods. What is that? That I'll show you with example. And second one, they must only access static data. That is another important information. They can call other static methods. They must only access static data, and they cannot refer to this. You can't take this into static methods. Okay, this will not work because you know that this means what? This means currently invoking object. Is it not? When object itself you are not creating in static, okay, so there is no question of using this. You can't use this or super. What is super? That we'll discuss later. So far we not come across this word. In Java, super is one keyword which is very helpful with respect to constructor and inheritance, that we'll discuss later. Anyway, you please remember when it comes, okay, static method will not use this or super. See, it called other static methods means what is the meaning? Because some meaning should be there. No, it calls only static method or it calls only static variables means what? Okay, that I'll show you with just example. See this, look at here. See, I created one variable, instance variable and static variable. Okay, let us give some value so that it will be clear. Okay, 50 means instance variable. Let us consider 100 means static variable. And we are also having a method M1, and we are also having other method. And I'll write one more method, that is that also instance method M3. M3. But I'll copy, and anyway, we will indicate it is M1, M2, something like that. Is it not? So that let us consider it is M1, it is M3. See, hmm, any doubt, Shamanta? Okay. Here, see, I written two instance method and one static method. Now, see, uh, as we defined, okay, a static method will invoke only other static methods. Okay, let us consider now inside M3, I'll invoke M1. Will it allow? Yes, it is allowing. You just observe this. Okay, inside M3, it is invoking M1. If you execute this, you'll get static method, that is 100. Okay, anyway, see other things just I'll comment because our interest is something different. I'll comment all this. What I am showing here is, see, two instance method and one static method I invoked. See, just observe here, one instance method. There itself I am invoking M1, okay, without any object, okay, because inside, like in the same class, there itself I written. So definitely, it is possible to invoke from one instance method to another particular method. One, two, three. First, we have to invoke at least M3, is it not? Okay. So, ob.m3. So, when I am invoking M3, M3 will invoke M1. Okay. We'll see that. See, M3 I invoke. M3, in that I return M1. So, M1 value, that is M1 means what? That will be displayed. Then M3 statement will be displayed. Okay. So, that's what takes place with respect to M3. Now, uh, see, same M1 I'll invoke from here, and I invoke M2 directly. It is showing the error. Okay, what is the error? Error is you cannot make static reference to non-static method M1 because M1 is non-static method. You can't call that directly. See, that is what the definition what we read. Okay, it is not possible to call M1 because M1 is non-static method. See, from one instance method, you can call another instance method, but from static method, it is not possible to invoke M1. For invoking M1, you have to create object of type A. Okay? Then it is possible. Okay, PP actually class name. See, using class name, that is, you have to instantiate, then you can invoke, but directly it is not possible to invoke inside the static method. Okay, like that. If this particular method is static, see, I'll show you. If let us consider it is a static method. Static method means you can directly invoke. See? Because one static method will invoke another static method. But for instance method, it is not possible to invoke that directly. You have to create the object of that type. Is it clear? Next, see, in this particular method, static method, if you use A, it gives error. Because what is A? It is not knowing. Okay. What is A? It is not knowing. But B, you can use because it is a static variable. Okay. Inside static method, you can use static variable and static method. But for instance method, you have to invoke that through by creating the object. Okay. So this is what the statement. They can only call other static methods. They must only access static data. Okay. So this information you should know about static. Okay. So please remember only thing that static method means you can invoke without creating objects. Okay. Because it normally comes in the built-in classes. Whenever you are invoking any method with the help of class name, that is true because it is a static method. Okay, so that's what about static method. One more important information, that is, see, let us consider one class A, and we are having one static method M2, and no, to invoke that method, we are using M2. Is it not? Directly you can use this because it is a static method. I am not creating any object. Directly with the name itself, I'll invoke. Let us consider one more class B. There we are having one method M3. How to invoke that? If I invoke M3, is it possible to get that? Okay. Anybody can answer? See this? I am invoking M3 directly. Okay, because with another class where M3, which is also a static. Okay, you know, if it is an instance method, I have to create an object of type B. Okay, but now is it possible to invoke like this? I'll call M3. Whether it will invoke this particular method? Yes or no? Yes, possible. Yes, possible. Whether it is possible like this, I'm invoking M3. Okay, because it's a static method, but it is defined in another class. If it is in the same class, I can invoke like this, M2. But it is defined in another class, is it not? Then it is not possible to invoke like that because it belongs to some other class property. Then how I can access that M3 directly? Then what to do? Okay, so how to handle that? With the help of class name, you can invoke that. With the help of class name, you just observe, because M3 you can't directly call because M3 means it will not be suitable, because why it is not suitable means we are also having another class which also contains M3. The chances are there, no? You also return method M3, your friend also return M3. Okay, I wanted to call that method, then on what basis? Is it not? I have to use some help. I have to take some help. Is it not? I wanted to identify with name. It is similar to like see in the same class, we are having two persons. Okay, here in the same in EC itself we are having two Vinay. Okay, then how to differentiate? Is it not? We have to use directly. I'll invoke with Vinay with the USN number, Vinay with this USN number. But if Vinay also resides in some other brand like mechanical Vinay, yet EC Vinay, is it not? So I have to identify mech.vinay, EC.vinay. So that's what, okay, with the help of class name. B.M3 means this method, D.M3 means this method. See, in the same particular class means directly you can invoke. But when it belongs to other particular class with the name of the class, see, we are not creating object, but with the help of name of the class, we are invoking the method. Okay, so very important. Okay, that's why it is called a static method, and it is also called as class methods. Okay, sometimes you may get this particular statement. Class method. What are class method? With the help of class name, you are invoking that. Okay, so static methods are class methods. With the help of class name, you are invoking that. Okay, I think it's clear. Is it not? Because normally, always without any object, you are invoking. Okay, fine. But if it is in the same class, you are invoking like that. But when it resides in another class, with the help of class name, you have to invoke that method. Okay. Now, after learning this, we learned static variable, we learned static method. That's why I told that today's class is very important. Okay, we are learning very important concept of Java. We learned static variable and static method. Now, static block. Static block, it is new concept. Okay, what is static block? So before that, you should know very important information. That is, normally main is the thread which will execute first. See, if you written any program, class A, okay, in that so many methods you are writing, that is it not? In all this, uh, one is public static void main. Main should be there, is it not, to execute your program, that I repeated many times. See, when this execution starts, this is the first thread, because your JVM will identify where is main to execute your program, and it will search first, and whatever the statement inside main, that will be executed first. That's why whatever the object you create, okay, if you a new object you created, and that constructor will be invoked. So before that, main actually started, is it not, to instantiating this. Main is the first thread which will execute first. But normally, when there is a race, okay, main is always okay, fine. But somebody should override, is it not? That means somebody should come first, not always main. Then who is that? That is static block. Static block. If see, we are not having anything, just static. Open brace, close brace. Whatever you do inside this block, that will be executed before main. Whatever you do inside static block, that will be executed before main. That means if you like, just I'll show you now itself. Just see, normally here what we did, we are created the object pp, and after that obm3, like that, is it not? So opp, And just I'll show you. We'll write one constructor also. You know that whenever that particular instance is created, this will execute. Is it not? Uh, I am fast. We'll see whether it will first or not. Yes, I am first because as soon main executes, it invokes this constructor and that will be displayed. Okay. Now we'll write one thing that is static block. We'll write who told you yeah. Okay. Now if I execute, some error, what is that? Who told you are first? I am here. Okay, so that's what static. I think it's clear. So static is first. If you introduce like always main is the first thread which will execute, but in some special cases you wanted to perform some action before main. Okay, like if you are instantiating any particular variable or in the class, like one example just I'll show you. See, in the class you have written one particular variable, okay, b, and you not instantiated that, but you want before main is executing, you wanted to do some operation for that. Okay. B, you define some other variable static is equal to 5, something like that, and you wanted to multiply that with 5 and you wanted to instantiate before main. Okay, then you can do such operation inside static. Please remember, static is first one to execute before main. If you introduce that in the program. Okay. That's what we'll learn today. That is about so many things about static, is it not? Variables, methods, block. There is also one more thing. That is, you can make class also static. Okay. I think it's not visible, just like this. See, you can make class also static. That is used in inner class. Case it's time permits, someday I'll show you how you can work with inner class. It is explicitly not included in your syllabus. Okay, after discussing this directly, they will jump to inheritance. Okay, and anyway, if someday I'll definitely I'll take you to inner class in Java. Okay, for time being, you please remember we are with static variables, static methods, static block. We are also having static class, that is for your extra knowledge. You can define class also as static. How, that I will show you someday. Anyway, this is what about static. I think today's class you'll learn many things about static. We'll continue with other concept in next class. Thank you.